The security camera footage is grainy, shot from above in that washed-out way that makes everyone look like a ghost. A young man in shorts and a t-shirt runs through an airport terminal. He is not running to catch a flight. He is running for his life, or at least he believes he is. He bursts through doors, sprints across a parking lot, and climbs a fence. Then he drops into a field of tall sunflowers and disappears. That was 11 years ago. No one has seen him since. Before we dive into this story, leave a comment letting us know where in the world you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow we uncover another case that will stay with you long after the screen fades to black. The footage has been viewed more than 16 million times on YouTube. It has been analyzed frame by amateur detectives around the world. It has been discussed on Reddit threads that run to thousands of comments, on podcasts that pick apart every detail, on TikTok videos that replay those final seconds over and over. Lars Mittank has been called the most famous missing person on the internet, a dubious distinction for a young man who simply wanted to go home. But what happened in those final moments at Varna Airport? What was Lars Mittank running from? Was there truly someone after him? Or was the threat entirely in his mind? And where is he now, more than a decade later? These are questions that have never been answered. They may never be. Bulgaria sits on the western shore of the Black Sea, a country of mountains and valleys, of ancient monasteries and modern beach resorts. It is a land with a complicated history, part of the Ottoman Empire for centuries, then a communist state aligned with the Soviet Union, and since 1989, a democracy finding its way in the new Europe. For Western tourists, it offers beaches, nightlife, and prices far lower than those in Spain or Greece. The resort town of Golden Sands stretches along the northern Black Sea coast, about 17 kilometers north of the city of Varna. It is Bulgaria's largest purpose-built seaside resort, developed in the 1950s by the communist government as a showcase for socialist leisure. In its heyday, it was the jewel of what Western visitors called the Red Riviera, a vacation destination for workers from across the Eastern Bloc. Since privatization in the 1990s, Golden Sands has transformed into a mass tourism destination, popular with visitors from Germany, Britain, Poland, Romania, and beyond. The resort offers everything a young holidaymaker could want: miles of golden beach, rows of hotels and apartment blocks, restaurants serving cheap food, and a nightlife scene that pulses until dawn. Bars and clubs line the promenade. Music thumps from beach parties. The drinks are inexpensive, the atmosphere is lively, and for groups of young friends from Northern Europe, it represents an affordable escape from the routines of home. It was to this place that Lars Mittank came in the summer of 2014, looking for sun and relaxation with his friends. He would never leave. Lars Joachim Mittank was born on February 9, 1986, in Berlin, Germany. He grew up in Itzehoe, a town of about 30,000 people in the Schleswig-Holstein region of northern Germany. It is a quiet place, unremarkable in the way that many German towns are, with tidy streets and orderly lives. Lars was, by all accounts, an ordinary young man. He was close to his mother, Sandra Mittank, with whom he maintained a particularly warm relationship. After his father suffered a stroke, Lars often helped out at his parents' home, demonstrating a sense of responsibility beyond his years. He had a girlfriend. He had friends. He worked as a technician at a power plant near Wilhelmshaven, Germany's largest naval base and only deep-water port. It was steady work, the kind of job that offered security and routine. He was a football fan, supporting his local team, Werder Bremen, with the passion that German football inspires. He was often seen wearing Adidas clothing and old sneakers, the uniform of young men across Europe. His friends described him as laid back, kind, and easy to get along with. There was nothing in his background to suggest mental illness, nothing to indicate instability, nothing that would foreshadow what was to come. The trip to Bulgaria was special for Lars. It was his first journey outside of Germany. At 28 years old, he was finally venturing beyond the borders of his homeland, joining 5 of his school friends for a week at the Golden Sands Resort. They arrived on June 30th, 2014, full of anticipation for a week of beach, pool, football, and nightlife. For the first few days, everything went according to plan. The week went by really fast. Paul Roman, one of Lars's friends, would later tell German television. We relaxed on the beach, swam in the pool, played football, and went clubbing. He was relaxed. He was in a good mood. Another friend, Tim Schult, noticed that Lars was not eating much, just small bowls of soup or small salads. It was unusual, perhaps, but not alarming. People eat differently on holiday. The heat, the unfamiliar food, the excitement of being somewhere new, all of it can affect appetite. There was nothing else that stood out, nothing that suggested something was wrong. Until the final night. On July 6, 2014, the day before they were supposed to fly home, Lars and his friends went out to a bar in town. It was a typical evening of drinking and socializing, the kind of night that young men on holiday have been having for generations. But at some point, the atmosphere shifted. Lars got into an argument with another group of German tourists. The dispute was about football, that most tribal of European obsessions. Lars, a devoted Werder Bremen supporter, found himself at odds with fans of Bayern Munich, the dominant force in German football, and a club that inspires fierce rivalry. What began as banter escalated into something uglier. At some point, Lars separated from his friends. What happened next is unclear. Different accounts give different details. Some say Lars was attacked by the same men he had argued with. Others say the Bayern fans hired a local to beat him up. What is certain is that Lars disappeared from his friends for the rest of the night and turned up the next morning with injuries. His jaw was cracked. His eardrum was ruptured. He had been in a fight, and he had lost. Lars went to see a Bulgarian doctor about his injuries. The doctor examined him and delivered unwelcome news. The ruptured eardrum made flying dangerous. The pressure changes during air travel could cause intense pain or further damage. Lars was advised to stay behind while his friends flew home. The doctor prescribed an antibiotic called cefprozil, 500 milligrams, to prevent infection. It was a standard prescription, a common drug, the kind of thing doctors prescribe, routinely for ear infections and similar ailments. Lars's friends offered to stay with him. They did not want to leave him alone in a foreign country, injured and unable to fly. But Lars assured them he would be fine. He would wait a day or two for his ear to heal, then fly home on his own. There was no need for everyone to miss their flight on his account. It was a decision that haunts them to this day. On July 7, 2014, Lars checked out of the Golden Sands Resort at the same time as his friends. They said their goodbyes and headed to Varna Airport. Lars, meanwhile, needed to find somewhere else to stay. It was peak season, and rooms were scarce. Eventually, he found a vacancy at the Hotel Koller Varna, a budget establishment near the airport. It was not the kind of place he had been staying with his friends, but it was cheap and convenient. He checked in and prepared to wait out the time until he could fly home. That night, everything changed. Lars called his mother in Germany. He spoke in a whisper, his voice tight with fear. He told her that people were trying to kill him. He told her that she should cancel his credit cards because someone had copied them when he checked into the hotel. He told her that he was hiding. Sandra Mittank was alarmed. This was not the son she knew. Lars had always been calm, rational, the kind of person who handled problems without drama. Now he sounded terrified, speaking in hushed tones, as if afraid of being overheard, saying things that made no logical sense. She tried to calm him, tried to understand what was happening. But Lars was insistent. There were 4 men after him. They were the same men from the bar, or people connected to them. They wanted to rob him or kill him. He was not safe in his hotel room. He was not safe anywhere. Over the course of the evening, Sandra spoke with her son multiple times by phone and text. Each conversation increased her worry. Lars was not making sense. He was asking about his antibiotics, questioning their ingredients, expressing fears about what the medication might be doing to him. He complained that his ear was getting worse, that he was disoriented, that something was very wrong. What had happened to her son? This was not the Lars she knew. This was someone else entirely, a frightened stranger speaking through her son's voice. The hotel's security cameras captured Lars's behavior that night. The footage, later reviewed by police, shows a man in the grip of profound fear. He paces up and down the corridors, looking out of windows, checking over his shoulder. He examines objects on the walls closely, as if searching for hidden cameras or listening devices. At one point, he hides in an elevator for an extended period, pressing himself into a corner, watching the doors as if expecting them to open and reveal his pursuers. At around 1 in the morning, he left the hotel entirely. He was gone for about an hour. Where he went during that time and what he did remains a mystery. When he returned, he seemed no calmer. The fear had not released its grip. By morning, Lars's paranoia had intensified. He called his mother again and told her that the people pursuing him were getting closer. He was desperate to get out of Bulgaria, to get home to the safety of Germany. Sandra Mittank did what any mother would do. She booked her son a flight for that afternoon. She also purchased a bus ticket as a backup, in case he was unable to fly. And she sent him 500 euros, money he could use for emergencies. Lars never withdrew the money. On the morning of July 8, 2014, Lars called a taxi and made his way to Varna Airport. He texted his mother to let her know he had arrived safely. Everything seemed to be proceeding according to plan. He would see the airport doctor, get clearance to fly, and board his afternoon flight to Germany. Within hours, he would be home. The airport was undergoing renovation at the time, with construction workers moving through the terminal. It was busy, chaotic, in the way that airports often are, full of travelers and noise, and the ordinary confusion of coming and going. Lars went to the airport's medical clinic to have his ear checked. He wanted confirmation that he was fit to fly. The airport physician, Dr. Kosta Kostov, would later describe their encounter in detail. It was an encounter that has puzzled him ever since. Lars was nervous and erratic, the doctor recalled. He questioned the antibiotics he had been prescribed, asking about their ingredients, expressing doubt about whether they were safe to take. He wanted to know exactly What was in the medication? What side effects it might cause? Whether it could be affecting his mind. His questions were rapid fire, anxious, the questions of a man who trusted nothing and no one. His behavior was unusual, the kind of thing that makes a doctor pay attention. Kostov had seen many patients over the years, tourists with minor injuries and ailments, people anxious about flying or worried about their health. But Lars was different. There was something in his eyes, a wildness, a fear that seemed disproportionate to his situation. Kostov examined Lars's ear and found that it had healed sufficiently for air travel. The ruptured eardrum was mending. The pressure changes of flight would be uncomfortable, but not dangerous. He told Lars that he was fine to fly home. It should have been good news, the reassurance that Lars had been seeking, the end of an unpleasant episode, and the beginning of a journey back to normalcy. But Lars did not leave the office. He sat in a chair, still agitated, still expressing concerns about his medication. He asked more questions about the antibiotics. He wanted to know if they could cause hallucinations, if they could make him see things that were not there. He seemed unable to process the good news, unable to accept that he was cleared to go. Something was holding him there, some fear that would not release its grip. Dr. Kostov tried to reassure him. The medication was safe. The flight would be fine. He should go home, rest, see his own doctor in Germany if he was still concerned. But Lars remained in the chair, trembling slightly, his eyes darting to the door. And then the door opened. A construction worker walked into the clinic. It was a routine intrusion, the kind of thing that happens constantly in an airport undergoing renovation. The man was not there for Lars. He was probably looking for a Band-Aid, or directions, or simply passing through. But Lars reacted as if the man were a threat. He began to tremble. His eyes went wide, and then he spoke words that would echo through the years to come. "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." He stood up abruptly and ran. He left everything behind: his luggage, his wallet, his mobile phone, his passport. All the things a person needs to travel, to identify themselves, to function in the modern world. He abandoned them all and fled. The airport security cameras captured what happened next. The footage has been viewed millions of times, analyzed by professionals and amateurs alike, studied frame by frame, in the hope that some clue, some answer, might be hidden in the pixels. Lars runs through the terminal. He is wearing shorts and a t-shirt, the casual clothing of a tourist. He carries nothing. He passes other travelers, airport workers, people going about their ordinary business. He does not stop. He does not look back. He exits the terminal and sprints across the parking lot. His movements are frantic, desperate, the running of a man who believes he is fleeing for his life. He reaches a fence at the edge of the airport property. He climbs the fence and drops down on the other side. The last image shows him running into a field, a vast expanse of tall sunflowers stretching toward the horizon, and then he is gone. That was July 8th, 2014. Lars Mittank has never been seen since. The search began immediately. Bulgarian authorities deployed police dogs and helicopters to scan the area around Varna Airport. Ground teams combed the nearby forests and fields. They searched a 10-kilometer radius around the spot where Lars had last been seen. They looked for footprints, for clothing, for any sign that a man had passed that way. They found nothing. The terrain around Varna Airport is a mix of forests, fields, and coastline. It is not wilderness in the American sense, but it is rugged enough that a person could get lost, could hide, could disappear. The Golden Sands Nature Park lies nearby, nearly 200 hectares of protected woodland. There are old bunkers from the communist era, scattered through the area, concrete relics of the Cold War, some of them still accessible. There are caves in the limestone hills, natural hiding places where a man might shelter. And there is the coastline itself, cliffs and beaches and the dark waters of the Black Sea. The summer temperatures in this part of Bulgaria can reach 30 degrees Celsius or more. It is the kind of heat that can kill a person who is not prepared for it. Dehydration sets in quickly. Heat stroke can cause confusion, collapse, death. A man running through fields without water, without shade, without the mental capacity to seek help, might not survive for long. German police became involved almost immediately, working with their Bulgarian counterparts through Interpol. The Federal Criminal Police Office, known as the BKA, coordinated with investigators in Varna. It was an international case now, a German citizen missing on Bulgarian soil, with no explanation and no leads. The search expanded. Volunteers joined the police, spreading out through the fields and forests, calling Lars's name. Drones flew overhead, their cameras scanning the landscape. Local farmers were questioned. Homeless shelters were checked. Hospitals were contacted. Their records searched for unidentified patients. Sandra Mittank flew to Bulgaria to join the search. She walked the roads near the airport, called her son's name, looked for any sign that he had passed that way. She found nothing. "It's like the earth swallowed him up," she said. The phrase would come to define the case, a summary of its central impossibility. Days passed, then weeks. The official search wound down, as searches must when there is nothing to find. But Sandra did not give up. She hired a private investigator, a man named Andreas Gutig, to continue looking for her son. Gudig checked hospital records throughout Bulgaria, looking for patients admitted without identification. He contacted homeless shelters, police stations, morgues. He traveled to Varna and distributed missing person flyers. He interviewed witnesses and followed up on tips. He found nothing. Lars Mittank had vanished as completely as if he had never existed. In the years since Lars disappeared, numerous theories have been proposed to explain what happened. None has been proven. None fully explains the strange sequence of events that led a healthy young man to run from an airport and vanish into a field. But each theory illuminates a different aspect of the mystery, a different way of understanding what might have gone wrong. The most commonly cited explanation is that Lars experienced some form of psychotic break. Acute psychosis can come on suddenly, even in people with no prior history of mental illness. It can cause paranoid delusions, hallucinations, and behavior that appears completely irrational to outside observers. A person in the grip of psychosis might genuinely believe that they are being pursued, that their life is in danger, that escape is the only option. The symptoms match what witnesses described: the paranoia, the whispered phone calls, the belief that strangers were conspiring against him, the frantic flight from perceived danger. These are textbook signs of a psychotic episode. But Lars had no history of mental illness. His family says he had never shown signs of psychiatric problems. There was no pattern of behavior that would suggest schizophrenia or another condition that causes psychosis. Whatever happened to Lars seems to have come out of nowhere, a sudden break with reality that had no precedent. Mental health professionals have noted that psychotic episodes can sometimes occur in people with no prior history, triggered by stress trauma, sleep deprivation, or other factors. The fight that injured Lars. The isolation of being left alone in a foreign country. The pain from his injuries. All of these could have contributed to a mental health crisis. But this remains speculation. Without being able to examine Lars, without knowing his full medical history, no definitive diagnosis can be made. Some have focused on the antibiotic Lars was prescribed. Cefprozil is a cephalosporin antibiotic, part of a class of drugs that has been associated with rare psychiatric side effects. In some patients, cephalosporins have caused confusion, hallucinations, and paranoid thinking. The connection is rare, but documented in medical literature. Case reports describe patients who developed psychotic symptoms after taking these medications, symptoms that resolved once the drugs were discontinued. Could the medication have triggered Lars's paranoia? Could a rare side effect have caused him to believe he was being pursued when no threat existed? Some researchers think it is possible. The timing fits. Lars was prescribed the antibiotics shortly before his behavior changed. The symptoms he displayed are consistent with drug-induced psychosis. There is a problem with this theory, however. Dr. Kostov, the airport physician who examined Lars, later said that Lars had not been taking his medication. He didn't take those antibiotics, Kostov said in an interview. He didn't even fill out his prescription. So, his behavior couldn't have been a result of that. I can't think of a single reason why he left my office in such a panic. I'm still confused. If the drugs were still in their packaging, untaken and unfilled, they could not have caused the psychiatric symptoms Lars was displaying. The medication theory, despite its appeal, may not hold up. Some researchers have suggested that the head injury Lars sustained in the fight might have contributed to his mental state. Traumatic brain injuries can cause personality changes, confusion, and erratic behavior. A blow to the head that ruptured his eardrum might also have caused damage to his brain, triggering the paranoid episode that followed. Combined with the stress of being alone in a foreign country, the pain from his injuries, the lack of sleep, and possibly dehydration from the Bulgarian summer heat, the conditions were ripe for a mental crisis. Perhaps it was not any single factor, but a perfect storm of circumstances that pushed Lars over the edge. Others have proposed darker theories. Bulgaria has one of the highest rates of human trafficking in the European Union. Organized crime networks operate throughout the country, involved in everything from drug smuggling to prostitution to organ trafficking. Could Lars have stumbled into something dangerous? Could the men who attacked him have been part of a criminal organization? This theory suggests that Lars may have been genuinely pursued, that his paranoia was rooted in a real threat. Perhaps the fight at the bar was not a random dispute over football, but something more sinister. Perhaps Lars knew something, or was mistaken for someone, that made him a target. The problem with this theory is the lack of evidence. There is no indication that Lars was involved in any criminal activity. His friends were not connected to organized crime. Nothing in his background suggests any reason why traffickers or criminals would have targeted him. Some have even speculated about more outlandish explanations. A few have suggested that Lars deliberately staged his disappearance, that he wanted to escape his life and start over somewhere new. But this theory makes little sense. Lars left behind his passport, his money, his phone, everything he would need to build a new life. He was close to his mother and had no apparent reason to want to disappear. And the sheer terror visible in the security footage does not look like someone executing a plan. The truth is that no theory fully explains what happened to Lars Mittank. Each one has gaps, contradictions, unanswered questions. And in the absence of evidence, we are left with speculation. In the years since Lars vanished, there have been numerous reported sightings. People from around the world have claimed to see him, usually as a homeless man, usually in a state of confusion or disorientation. None of these sightings has ever been confirmed. About a year after his disappearance, a truck driver reported seeing someone who looked like Lars hitchhiking on a road near Varna. The tip was investigated but led nowhere. In December 2016, a man who resembled Lars was found wandering barefoot along a highway in Porto Velho, Brazil. He was disoriented and could not explain who he was or how he had gotten there. The internet exploded with speculation. Could Lars Mittank have somehow made his way to South America? The man was eventually identified as Anton Pilipa, a Canadian who had been missing for 5 years. It was not Lars. In 2019, a German truck driver came forward with a story. He said he had given a hitchhiker a ride from Dresden to Schildau in Brandenburg. The hitchhiker, he said, bore a striking resemblance to Lars Mittank. Police investigated but found nothing conclusive. In 2020, Sandra Mittank received a photograph of a young homeless man in Dusseldorf who looked like her son. She shared it widely, hoping for confirmation. None came. The sightings continue to this day. Sandra receives hundreds of messages from people who believe they have seen Lars. She investigates each one, following up on tips that almost always lead to dead ends. She has appeared on television in Germany and Bulgaria, pleading for information. She has worked with psychics, with private investigators, with anyone who might be able to help. She refuses to give up hope. "He is my son," she has said. "I will never stop looking. I know he's still out there." Sandra maintains a website dedicated to finding Lars, called Findet Lars Mittank, German for Find Lars Mittank. She posts updates on social media, keeping her son's case in the public eye. She responds to every tip, every reported sighting, every message from someone who thinks they might have seen her son. Most leads go nowhere. Most sightings are cases of mistaken identity, but Sandra follows up on each one, because the next tip might be the one that brings Lars home. She believes that Lars may be suffering from amnesia, that the head injury he sustained in Bulgaria caused him to lose his memory. She imagines him living as a homeless person somewhere in Europe, unable to remember who he is or where he came from. It is a painful image, her son wandering confused and alone, not knowing that his mother is searching for him. But it is also a hopeful one, because it means he might still be alive. Sandra has appeared on television programs in Germany and Bulgaria, telling her son's story, pleading for information. She has shared photographs and video clips, hoping that someone somewhere will recognize Lars and come forward. She has worked with psychics and mediums, grasping at any possibility that might lead to answers. She has endured the cruelty of hoaxers who claim to have information but are lying for attention. Through it all, she has maintained her dignity and her determination. She has become an advocate for other families of missing persons, using her platform to raise awareness of cases beyond her son's. She has spoken about the importance of never giving up, of keeping hope alive, even when the odds seem impossible. The Findet Lars Mittank Facebook page has thousands of followers. People from around the world check in regularly, hoping for news, sharing theories, offering support. The case has created a community of people who have never met Lars, but who care about finding him, who feel connected to his story and his family's pain. It is a theory that offers hope, but raises painful questions. If Lars is alive, why has no one recognized him? His face has been seen by millions. His case has been covered by media outlets around the world. The security footage of his final moments has become one of the most watched true crime clips on the internet. How could he remain hidden for more than a decade? The alternative is harder to contemplate. If Lars ran into those sunflower fields in a state of psychosis, if he was confused and disoriented and unable to care for himself, he may not have survived for long. The Bulgarian summer is hot. Dehydration can kill in a matter of days. A person suffering from a mental health crisis, without water or shelter, without the capacity to seek help, might have succumbed within hours. But if Lars died in those fields, where is his body? The area was searched extensively. Dogs were deployed. Helicopters flew overhead. Volunteers combed the terrain. Nothing was found. No clothing, no bones, no sign that a man had passed that way and never returned. It is this absence of evidence that makes the case so haunting. There is no answer, no resolution, no ending. Just a man running into a field, and then nothing. The disappearance of Lars Mittank has become something more than a missing persons case. It has become a symbol of how even in the digital age, even in a world of surveillance cameras and smartphones and constant connectivity, a person can still vanish without a trace. The case is often cited as the first viral missing person case in Europe. The security footage was released by Bulgarian authorities in the hope that someone might recognize Lars or provide information about his whereabouts. Instead, it took on a life of its own. Uploaded to YouTube, it was viewed millions of times. It spread across social media, shared and reshared, analyzed and discussed. It became one of the most watched true crime clips on the internet. Reddit communities formed around the case, with amateur investigators dissecting every available piece of evidence. TikTok creators made videos about Lars, introducing his story to new generations of viewers. Podcasts devoted episodes to his disappearance, interviewing experts and speculating about theories. True crime channels on YouTube produced documentaries, some running 2 hours in length. The security footage that captured Lars's final moments has been analyzed by professionals and amateurs alike. People have studied his body language, his facial expressions, the way he moves through the airport. They have tried to read meaning into every frame, searching for clues that might explain what he was thinking, what he was feeling, what he believed was chasing him. They have examined the clothes he was wearing, trying to identify brands and styles that might help track him. They have looked at the people in the background, wondering if one of them might be connected to his disappearance. They have timed his movements, calculated his speed, estimated the direction he was running. They have done everything that internet detectives do, hoping that their collective attention might solve what official investigations could not. Some see a man in the grip of genuine terror, fleeing from a threat that only he could perceive. Others see the frantic movements of someone experiencing a psychotic break, running from demons that existed only in his mind. A few see a man with a plan, someone who knew exactly what he was doing and chose to disappear. The truth is that we can know what was in Lars Mittank's mind in those final moments. We can know whether the threat was real or imagined, whether he was running towards something or away from everything. We can only watch the footage again and again and wonder. The case raises uncomfortable questions about mental health, about how quickly a person can change, about how fragile the mind can be. Lars showed no signs of mental illness before his trip to Bulgaria. He was stable, reliable, normal. And then, in the space of a few days, something broke inside him. If it can happen to Lars, it can happen to anyone. It also raises questions about how we respond to people in crisis. Lars was clearly distressed in the hours before he disappeared. He was behaving erratically, expressing fears that made no sense, seeking help from doctors and family members. But no one was able to stop him, to calm him, to get him the help he needed. He slipped through the cracks and ran into a field and was gone. The case has inspired changes in how some organizations think about personal safety. Travel. Companies have used Lars's story as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the importance of staying with groups, of keeping emergency contacts informed, of knowing when to seek help. Mental health advocates have pointed to Lars as an example of how quickly a crisis can develop, how important it is to recognize the warning signs. But for Varna Mittank, these broader lessons are secondary to the immediate question: where is her son? She has spent 11 years searching for an answer. She has traveled to Bulgaria multiple times, walked the roads near the airport, talked to anyone who might have information. She has kept Lars's case in the media, refusing to let his story fade into obscurity. She has endured the cruelty of false leads and hoax sightings, people who claim to have seen Lars but are mistaken or lying. And through it all, she has maintained hope. She believes Lars is alive somewhere, confused perhaps, lost perhaps, but alive. She waits for the day when someone will recognize her son from the photographs she has circulated around the world, when a call will come that brings news at last. Lars Mittank would be 38 years old today if he is still alive. He would be approaching middle age, perhaps with gray in his hair, perhaps with a family of his own. His friends from that trip to Bulgaria have grown older, have gotten married, have had children. They have moved on with their lives, but they have not forgotten the friend who did not come home with them. His mother still searches for him. She is older now, too, having spent more than a decade waiting for news that never comes. She checks her phone for messages, responds to tips, follows up on sightings. She has become an expert in the geography of hope and disappointment, knowing the terrain of false leads and dead ends better than anyone. The internet still watches that security footage, analyzing every frame, searching for meaning in a mystery that refuses to be solved. New true crime enthusiasts discover the case every year, drawn in by the haunting image of a young man running toward a field and disappearing. They add their theories to the millions already proposed, their questions to the chorus of wondering. The sunflower fields outside Varna Airport have long since been harvested. New crops have grown and been cut down year after year, the cycles of agriculture indifferent to human tragedy. The airport has completed its renovations. The construction workers who were there that day have moved on to other projects, other buildings, other lives. Tourists continue to arrive at Golden Sands, seeking sun and nightlife and the pleasures of a cheap beach holiday. Young people from Germany and Britain and Poland fly into Varna Airport, collect their luggage, board buses to the resorts. They know nothing of the young man who ran through this terminal years ago, who left his passport and phone and wallet behind, who vanished into a field of sunflowers and was never seen again. Life goes on. But somewhere out there, or perhaps nowhere at all, Lars Mittank remains missing. What happened on that morning at Varna Airport? What did Lars Mittank see, or believe he saw, that sent him running for his life? Was there really someone after him? Or was the threat entirely in his mind? And where did he go when he dropped over that fence and disappeared into the sunflowers? These questions have been asked millions of times. They have been debated in forums and analyzed in documentaries and pondered by true crime enthusiasts around the world. They have no answers. Some mysteries have solutions waiting to be discovered. Evidence is found. Witnesses come forward. Pieces fall into place. Other mysteries remain mysteries forever, resistant to explanation, immune to logic, eternal in their strangeness. The case of Lars Mittank belongs for now to the second category. Every theory has holes. Every explanation falls short. Every attempt to make sense of what happened runs into the same wall of impossibility. And so we are left with what we have. A young man who went on holiday with friends, a fight over football, a ruptured eardrum, a night of paranoia, a frantic run through an airport, a fence, a field, and then silence. He stepped outside for fresh air and was never seen again. Thanks for being here and listening. Don't forget to hit the bell for our latest stories. Stay safe and take care with your loved ones.